Hello, 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 and welcome. So, today I'm going to be talking about two simple things that could be sabotaging your prayers without your knowledge, or without kind of subconsciously, without you even thinking about it. Okay, now before I continue, once again, as I usually say, just in case you are unfamiliar with me, perhaps you've never come across me on my page or my blog or anything before, I'm just going to quickly introduce myself. My name is Nina Dafe, and I'm the founder and the editor of the Far Above Rubies Collection.com, where I basically help Christian women just like your amazing self to know their worth, their power, and their purpose as women of God, so they can speak up, step out, and shine just as He ordained them to. Okay, so I'm just gonna quickly, I guess, talk about what got me thinking about this. What are the two things that can actually be sabotaging our prayers? And as you're hopping on, I can see people are just hopping on. Say hi in the comments. Let me know that you're here with me. Let's have a dialogue basically as we go along. So there's two simple things that could be sabotaging your prayers. Okay, so going back to basically the last few weeks, I have been doing a lot of talking about the woman with the issue of blood. Okay, and the version that I have been concentrating on is the one in Luke 8:43 to 48, I believe. But as I was kind of continuing to kind of dwell on her, and hello, how you doing, my love? Thank you and welcome. Yeah, so as I've been kind of dwelling on her and thinking about her a bit more, I looked into kind of the other places in the Bible where she pops up. So she doesn't just pop up in Luke, she also pops up in Matthew. And then one line that I'm going to read from is the version in Mark 5:25 to 34. And basically, it talks about the fact that when she decided to go and get her healing, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the story, the woman with the issue of blood had a gynecological issue, which basically meant that she was bleeding for 12 years. And so she basically sought Jesus and decided that if she could touch the hem of his garment, then she would be healed. And in Mark 5:28, it actually says, for she said, if only I may touch his clothes, I shall be made well. And I know that in other translations, it says that she repeated this to herself, literally, if only I may touch his clothes or the hem of his garment, then I shall be made well. Okay. So thinking about that particular line, I would say that one of the things that is really kind of sabotaging our prayers is not being specific enough with what we want. Okay, so when you listen to the word of the woman with the issue of blood's testimony, she's very specific about the outcome and what kind of conditions and what she needs in order to actually achieve her goal. If I may touch the hem of his garment, then I shall be made well. And it was really interesting because, if you've been rocking with me for a while, then you would have seen that both on my social media, basically, a few weeks ago, I went to a reading for the 60th anniversary of Chinua Achebe's book, Things Fall Apart. And it's basically set in pre-colonial Nigeria. And so, it has a lot of analogies about farming, and it has a lot of analogies about the planting seasons and stuff like that. And even around that time, I remember doing a live just like this, where I talked about the fact that God was very much talking to me about harvest, and the fact that we shall, as the word says, reap what we sow, and that our work and what we are doing isn't in vain and shall not be in vain. And it was a word that he shared with me, and so I shared it with you guys. And it was very interesting because when I went to this reading, there was a particular chapter where it talks about the fact that the main character was planting yams, and he put the seeds in, and he did everything that he was supposed to do. But for some reason, the weather in that particular season, it kind of went haywire, and so there were floods of rain unexpectedly, which could have kind of almost suffocated and drowned the seeds. And then when the sun finally did start shining, it shone so brightly that, and for so long, that it actually started to scorch the leaves of the yams. And so he had to keep on tending to everything and really making sure that he had the harvest, even though he had planted the seed and done what he was supposed to do. And I think sometimes with our prayers and even our actions, it can be the same. And what I mean by that is, say we plant the seed of our prayer, whatever it may be, Lord, I need a new job. Lord, I need a house. Lord, send my husband. Lord, make my business, start to boom. Whatever your prayer is, the word is very clear that our words are seeds, and that whatever it is that we say, we will eat it, we will eat of its fruit. So it's the same with our prayers, okay? But one of the things that struck me as I listened to the reading was we can plant our seeds, but actually it's not just about the effort of us praying, and it's not just about the effort of us doing all of the actions either to actually get what we want. The conditions around us must also be good for the seed to grow. So just like when you plant a seed, it's not just about the seed. You have to have good soil. You need to have rain. You need to have sun. You need to have all of these things. It's actually the same when it comes to our brain children, our goals, our dreams, and our ideas, our prayers, the things that we want to manifest. And the revelation that really came to me is that when we pray, we need to also pray about the condition of our seed. Does that make sense? Please type yes in the comments, if you're still with me and you're still following me along. But yeah, so we need to actually pray about the conditions in which we are planting our seed. So for example, we know that James says that faith without actions is dead. So we have to have the faith to believe that we can have what we want and say the prayers, but we also need to do the action. Okay, so if we go back to the example of, God, I want a job. Okay, fine. So you have to fill in the applications and all of those sorts of things. But what we also need to do in order to not sabotage our prayers is to be very specific about what it is that we need to happen, what the conditions are that we need to be met in order to have what it is that we want. So if you're filling out a job application and you say that you want to have this thing, in your prayer, do not just pray, Lord, I want a job, but you also pray, okay, God, I need a job. I'm filling out this job application. I also need for the recruiters to show me favor. I also need for me to be liked by these people, for them to see my qualifications, for them to call me into interview, for me to actually get this job. Literally talk through the steps that you need. Name each thing. Name each, stage of the prayer and be very specific with it, because that's exactly how we overcome and get what we want. There's a part in Revelations where it says that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and also the word of our testimony. And if we go back to the woman with the issue of blood, that's exactly what she did. She named what she wanted, which was being healed, but she also called forth the steps that she needed to take in order for that to happen. In other words, she spoke about the positive conditions that she would need in order for the seed of her prayer and in order for the seed of her actions to actually come to pass, which was the touching the hem of his garment. So the first way, as I said, that we can sabotage our own prayers is by actually just not being specific enough, not actually realizing what the conditions are that need to be met in order for our prayers to come to pass, and not naming them before God, not praying on these things, and ensuring that we're really covering all bases when we go to God in prayer. Okay, does that make sense? Let me know in the comments whether or not that makes sense so that we can move on. I want to know that you're with me before I kind of go on to the second point. Okay, so while you're doing that, actually, I'm just going to quickly look at my notes. So that was, the first point, being very specific in your prayer so as not to sabotage yourself. Okay, the second thing is making sure that after we have prayed, our actions and our words are actually congruent with what it is that we have said that we wanted. Okay, so we need to make sure that our words and our actions are actually, love that, great, thank you for that. We need to make sure that our words and our actions are actually in alignment with what it is that we say that we want. Okay, so if we go back to the woman with the issue of blood, like I said, she kept on saying to herself, if I may but touch the hem of his garment, then I shall be healed. And she didn't just pray about it and then start, there's a lot of name it and claim it theology. There's a lot of, let's just say affirmations that it's going to come to pass. No, as I've already said, James is very clear that faith without actions is dead. So she kept on affirming and saying to herself what it is that she wanted. She also was very specific about the conditions that would need to be met in order to have it. But what this woman also then did was did the steps and took the steps that she would need to take in order to actually get what she wanted. I feel sometimes as Christians that we can kind of over spiritualize things. We think that just because we've prayed and just because we've named it and claimed it and spoken it into the atmosphere, that that's all the work that we need to take and that's it. That's just the beginning. One thing that I always say is, at the end of the day, you do what you can in the natural, but you also do what you can. You do what you can in the natural, but what you can't do or what you can't control, you control in prayer, you control supernaturally. So for example, if we continue to use the example of the job application, then the thing that you can control is getting the application, filling it out, emailing it over, or sending it by post, or whatever the case may be. What you can't control is another person and how they might feel reading your resume or your CV, or your application, or all of those sort of things. Physically, naturally, you can't control these things. But if you do what I said in the first point, which is become very specific about the outcome of what needs to happen, the conditions around the seed of your action and of your prayer, then you end up then controlling things within the supernatural and the spiritual realm so that you can then get what you want. Okay. The other thing as well is I want to draw your attention to the word testimony. Okay, so overcoming by the word of your testimony. So one of the dictionary definitions of the word testimony is open declaration or profession as of faith. Okay, so in other words, the words that we say, our testimonies, are actually an open declaration or profession of what we believe. They're an open declaration or profession of what we have in our heart. How do I know that? Well, basically in Luke 6:45, it actually says, out of the abundance of our hearts, our mouth speaks. So we literally say whatever's in our hearts or whatever is in our minds, okay? Hi to the new people joining. Say hi in the comments. Let me know you're here. We literally say what's in our minds or what's in our hearts, okay? And so one of the ways, or the second way that we can actually sabotage our prayers is by speaking against what it is that we say that we want. So you can say, for example, I want a higher paying job. You can say, for example, oh, this is the position that I now want to operate in, and this, that, and the other. But if actually you're in your heart, you know, you're being ruled by fear or imposter syndrome or whatever the case may be, you can pray one thing, but with your mouth actually end up saying things like, oh, well, but I'm not going to get the job anyway. Or, oh, well, but who, you know, I don't actually think that I'm qualified, or whatever the case may be. And by doing that, you are literally sabotaging your prayers, because you are speaking against the very thing that you say that you want. And literally, you know, the Galatians 6:7 says, do not be deceived. God is not mocked, for whatever a man sows, that he shall also reap. We need to realize that we don't just sow in our actions, and we don't just sow in prayers, but we actually sow with our mouths and the words that we speak as well. Okay, so don't sabotage your prayers by then speaking against it. Don't sabotage your prayers by then acting in a completely different way, you know, to what it is that you say that you want to do. So you can't pray for a job and then say you're not going to get it. You can't pray for a job and then not fill out the form. Everything that you do must actually be congruent. And if it's not, you can't then say, you know, the devil is against me, witches and wizards are praying against me, or whatever the case may be. No, you're the witch in this situation. You know, you're the wizard in this situation. You can sometimes be your own devil, because actually you're not following the principles that God has laid out, which is actually, if you sow positive seeds, you will reap positive seeds. And our seeds are our prayers, our seeds are our actions, our seeds are also the words that come out of our mouth. It is very, very important that when we pray a prayer and God actually presents us with the actual opportunity, we don't talk ourselves out of it. We don't disqualify ourselves from it and all of those sorts of things. Okay, so we basically sabotage our prayers by, number one, not being specific enough, and number two, actually speaking or acting against or in contrast to what it is that we say that we want. The woman with the issue of blood was very clear, number one, on what her goal was and what it is that she wanted. She therefore used her words to express her wants and her desires and her beliefs. If I may but touch the hem of his garment, then I will be healed. Okay, so be as specific as she was in her prayer. Pray about everything that needs to happen in order for you to be successful. And number two, make sure that what you say and what you do is then congruent with your prayer, because otherwise what you're going to end up doing is sowing one seed, so let's say a positive seed, with your prayer, but then when you kind of speak against that thing or act against that thing, it's almost like you're then sowing weeds in your own garden, like when you should actually just be growing flowers and growing positivity and the actual thing that you said that you wanted in prayer. You're then growing, you know, something else that ends up stealing what the goal ultimately, you're stealing its nutrients, suffocating it, choking it, and that's not what we want. Okay, so if that was useful to you, then let me know in the comments. If you've got any questions, also let me know. What was your biggest takeaway? Is there anything that you kind of wanted me to expand on a bit more? Okay, but other than that, I just really, really felt moved to kind of share that. Okay, sometimes we feel that when we're praying, we're praying against a brick wall, or I've been going to God in prayer, I've been doing what I know to do, and nothing seems to be happening. I want you to make very sure that you are not sabotaging yourself, that you're praying very specifically, but that you're also acting and speaking in accordance with your prayer. Don't end up sabotaging yourself. Don't plant flowers as well as weeds, okay? Be very, very conscious of what it is that you are doing and saying. We have to be intentional about these things, because especially as spirit-filled people, what we say and what we do, we reap those things. Okay, so I want you to be conscious of your power. I don't want you to be scared of it. I want you to flow in it, and I want you to make sure to use it to your advantage. Okay, and you can only do that through awareness. So I've just got a comment coming in. You are right to the point with this. Thank you. Oh, brilliant. I'm glad that this blessed you. Oh, getting choked up. I'm glad that this blessed you. I'm glad that it resonated with you. And just thank you guys for tuning in and commenting and, making me not feel like I'm kind of speaking into thin air. Like, I always appreciate you guys and your interaction. So thank you so, so, so much. Okay. So, with all of that being said, if this video blessed you, or if you can think of anyone else who could benefit from hearing this, then definitely, definitely feel free to feel free also to share with them so they can view. I always quote the scripture that freely we have received, so freely we should give. It's not about hoarding. It's not about taking a blessing and running with it. It's better to give than to receive. So don't rob yourself of a blessing by not sharing it with other people who might need it. I would also say that, if you have been feeling like, you've not been able to kind of penetrate with your prayers, if you have been feeling kind of stuck, if you've been feeling quite stagnant and frustrated, in terms of like your goals and your dreams and your aspirations, then I want you to know about the link that I've put in the caption for Stuck to Savvy. And it's basically a 3-day challenge that's going to help you with that. I talk a bit more about the woman with the issue of blood and the things that she can teach us about how to go from, being stuck, stagnant, and frustrated to savvy, satisfied, and clear about your life path. So if that's something that interests you, then definitely click on the link and just follow the instructions there. And also, if you, are watching in the replay and perhaps I've kind of just popped up in your news feed and you haven't liked the page, then also like the page, because I do lives every single week, and that will just basically make sure that you don't miss it. And if you're watching on YouTube, then also just press the subscribe button and the bell, and that will also do the same thing. Just make sure that you're notified every time I do upload a video, because that's also done every week. Okay, so until next time, guys, you take care. Continue commenting as well, especially for those in the replay. I'm extremely interactive, so I will write back. And yeah, you guys just be blessed and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for tuning in. Bye.